Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today, and today we're going to be swapping out the ball joint or the lower control arm on this Mitsubishi Lancer 2015. You have a choice. If you have a ball joint press or removal tool, you can always pull out the existing control arm and then, of course, put a new one in. In this case, I can show you both ways how to do it. I usually suggest, depending if you've got over 100,000 to 200,000 kilometers on the vehicle, to swap out the control arm, because then it also replaces the bushings that it's riding on. So that way you just attack a lot of birds with one stone. Anyways, let's go ahead and we're gonna crack these lug nuts loose. If you see a key on your rim, make sure that you have your key and you loosen that off as well. Crack them loose when they're on the ground, or well, when the tire's on the ground, before we jack it up. If you put it in the air and they've been torqued on with a high torque spec, you will not get them loose in the air and it'll annoy you. So use this as your jack plate. Go ahead, jack it up, put a jack stand under the frame right here, and just like so. Like I said, jack pads there, jack it up. After you get it underneath, you're good. With me, this is a pretty big jack stand, so that's why I have no bars being used. But if you have a shorter jack stand, you might have to set it up by 2 settings and so on and so forth. Anyways, you can leave the jack underneath here as a safety precaution if you want. You do not have to. Whatever you do, do not leave the pressure on the jack. Leave it on the stand. If you leave it on the jack and the car moves and shifts at all, won't be a good deal. Also, if you have a manual, just make sure your parking brake's on, so that way there's no chance of a rollaway. Now you can go ahead and take your lugs all the way out. Next thing you're going to want to do is see this bolt right here. We're going to shoot a whole bunch of penetration fluid on there, in the center, and as much into the threads as we can. Same's going to go with that side. Shoot some penetration fluid. You'll see that there's a nut that comes on top and the threads are exposed up there. So shoot the threads with penetration fluid and shoot the base of it. Majorly, anytime you can see the threads, shoot the threads with penetration fluid, and that should help it come out. We can also do that with the ball joint down here. All right, if we come down right here, you'll see that 17. Go ahead and loosen that off. Grab yourself a 19. Go ahead. I just use the impact gun. I prefer using this, but if you have to, go ahead and put on a breaker bar, whatever you got to, get that puppy loose, and then go ahead and start loosening it. Get it out. That's basically it. Next one, we're going to start on that bolt right there. As you can see, there's those threads that we lubricated up with the penetration fluid, and we're going to need a box wrench probably for this one. And again, you're just going to loosen that bolt out, put a box wrench on the other side, take it out from the bottom. Be sure to inspect hardware and thread. If you look at this and you pull this nut out and you look at these threads, and these ones are protruding, meaning they're sticking out farther than these ones, and these are all like sunken in and obviously been eaten away by all this road salt that unfortunately we have in British Columbia here. You definitely want to replace the hardware. Don't strip this stuff back in. Pretty easy anyway. So now we've got that bolt out. This one we can literally just pull out like that. Our arm is loose up here. We literally just have to separate the ball joint from down here and we're good. Things to note: you don't want to hit the rotor with anything steel. If you do and you ding it up, you're doing a brake change as well. If you need brakes, I'm not a big deal, but if you don't need brakes, it's a big deal. So don't swing anything metal near this. Well, if you take a look here, we have some punches. We're going to need these because what we want to do is hammer, but we want to hammer right here and separate this opening. By doing so, it'll loosen down here. We should be able to then have some flexibility with this joint. This should come down a bit with the ball joint. Once we separate it, you'll see it'll separate a little bit afterwards, since we've of course loosened this off. And then once it frees the shaft of the ball joint, we should be able to simply hold this down with a pry bar and slide the arm out. All right, I'm down to a couple threads there. Yours should be capped at the very beginning, meaning that just like 2 or 3 threads back from the edge. You're going to start love tapping this with a hammer. By love tapping, I mean as hard as you can without smashing the crap out of everything right here.
Once you start doing that, if this doesn't move, you put a ratchet or your impact gun on the other side, start reversing it, trying to pull it out. At first when you do it, it probably isn't going to come out. It's going to annoy you. So you're going to continue hitting it while turning it, put some penetration fluid in there, should lubricate it as it gets started, and then you should be able to pull it out. The other thing that I've done is I have my punch right here, and I've separated the opening right there by doing this. So again, just love tap with a hammer, thickest one I could find, thickest wedge, so that way it would go in between up to here, and as I hammered it, it separates the opening. You'll know you get enough because once you smack this with your tie rod separator, it'll go all the way in, and you'll literally press it all the way down to the ground, and then now the arm is free. We're going to go ahead and slide this out, and you can slide your new arm in. I just used a bit of a pry bar, pried it down here, got this end free, that end slips right out. When we go to put it in, that nub goes in here, and then press it up and in here. All right, pretty easy for getting this back in. Just get this guy back in there. We want to get it as deep in as possible, and then we're going to slowly move it over here and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle until we get to the right distance. And what you're going to do is after you get it to the right distance, flip it up. I'm going to say this, before you get this part in, get that one lined up and that one lined up. Majorly because it's going to be really fun to line those screws up. When you do, put a tiny bit of Loctite on this one. You can on this one if you want. This one's just going into a nut, so it's not a big deal. But again, I'll give you torque specs afterwards. Don't tie it in, just simply slide that in. You can use your rubber mallet and pry bar to move it in and out. Same with this side. You can also use screwdrivers. If the hole is like super close, stick a screwdriver in and then move the control arm around. And then again, just using this, grease up the tip. I usually use marine grease, but in this case I had enough grease on there from the old ball joint. Just used some of the old grease from the ball joint and lubed it up, made sure it wasn't dirty grease. But anyways, it's in there. I'm just gonna go ahead now and line up the last one over there using my pry bar. And again, if you have even a crow's foot pry bar, it's got a round end on it, you can use it to line up the hole. This is for a perfect example. Simply, it's jammed up there. Again, if it's sitting right here, you would just simply get the tip of a crow's foot in there and then move it around. Now we can go ahead, slide our bolt up. Go ahead, slide that bolt through as you already should have. And then once you've got that one lined up, go ahead and slowly work this one. I found it best to shine a flashlight down the hole and then slowly just line it up the best you can, because you do not want to just go ramming it in there and strip it in. Once you get that in there, again, from there you can cinch the two up. Don't put them to any sort of spec, just cinch them up, because next we're gonna love tap this until the groove lines up here so we can get that bolt in. It should just pass through. You should not have to try and hammer that bolt through on the ball joint. If you do that, you're gonna completely nuke the threads on it and it's not gonna be usable. You're gonna have to take it apart, you're gonna have to play around with the ball joint, and another trip to the store. If you look through that hole, you'll be able to see when it lines up with the horseshoe that's going to allow the bolt to pass through. When it gets there, slide it through. Once you've got your 90, 90, and 60, let's go ahead, back our jack out, straighten our steering wheel again, slide our rim on, and you could put these to 80 to 90 foot-pounds. But what I like to do is just thread all your nuts on, get them kind of cinched in that star pattern, and then after you've gone ahead and cinched them, put it on the ground, tighten them on the ground with a torque wrench. Once you put it down, go ahead, tighten it between 80 to 100 foot-pounds for the rims. I'll leave it up to you. And other than that, make sure you check the torque on them about 100 kilometers or 500 kilometers, whatever you want to do. And that's all there is to it. Thanks again for watching. Press like if this video helped you out. Subscribe for more.